introduction. Welcome to the Cafe Amarati here in our gallery and online. Johannes Vermeer is an artist that is presented at Dresden with his epochal work of a girl reading a letter at an open window. And we were able to extract a secret from the painting. This is the occasion of this exhibition, the largest Vermeer exhibition in Germany so far. Before I introduce you to the speakers, a few words on the structure of this conference. We will have a Q&A session after the press conference with questions from the live stream as well. Then we will have a guided tour with Ms. Ackermann and the curators, and Constanze Krüger will take you on an online tour. And this tour, I believe, will conclude at 1:15. I would have to ask you to leave then because, as you know, we are expecting an important visitor, which is why we have to close the exhibition. So 1:15, 1:30, then you would have to leave. And before you enter the exhibition, we would like to ask you to hand in your bags and coats on the right-hand side of the Winkelmann Forum, where somebody will take care of your belongings and tick off what every person has handed in. And I would like to point out that there is a stamp. The Postmodern Company has launched a special edition, a Vermeer stamp, which is quite remarkable because 10,000 postcards can be sent from the Old Masters Gallery for free. First of all, the director of our Dresden State Art Collection, Ms. Marian Ackermann, will say a few words. Then the collector and curator of the exhibition, Stefan Koja, will speak, and curator Uta Neithardt. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome. Good morning to all of you. I would say that every exhibition on Johannes Vermeer is a sensation because, as you know, he completed not more than 35 paintings, and bringing them together is an immense achievement. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I don't think that we will have a chance to see many Vermeer exhibitions in our lifetime, and we have just heard that it's the large, curated by Stefan Koja and Uta Neithardt, and the girl reading a letter at an open window will be a centerpiece of the exhibition, one of our two Vermeer paintings. We invited you to a press conference a while ago where we reported on the state of affairs of the restoration, and now the 4-year period of restoration has come to an end. Everything that back then, of course, was a daring endeavor seemed to pay off in the end. The determining aspects to be considered were, on the one hand, the decisive essential question if the overpaint comes from Vermeer himself or not, and the second question was, what about the quality of the figure in the background? And now you are about to see the result, and I'm sure that you will confirm that it was the correct decision and a wonderful painting has emerged. Vermeer himself constructed his paintings. He reconsidered and restructured them, and the process of genesis was something that we had to understand and rewind in a way to be able to rethink things again. And the last time we spoke to the press, there were many open questions and secrets in the picture, the edges, for example, and now some decisive points were made. I have said it in the beginning that any Vermeer exhibition is a sensation in and of itself, because to get hold of the paintings is always very difficult, naturally, and especially in a situation as we have experienced it in the recent past with the global lockdown. And which this is why I would like to talk about the works that we got hold of, two from the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. In 2023, the Amsterdam Museum will have its own exhibition, the Woman in Blue reading a letter, and a street view. Then a wonderful picture from the National Gallery in Washington, the Woman with a Balance. I think Ms. Koya loves this picture more than anything else. Then the National Gallery in London, young woman standing at a virginal, and the geographer. Then from the Berlin Museum, the girl with a necklace, and from Brunswick, the girl with a wine glass. And the Frick collection has agreed to lend us the music lesson, because that's the first time that this painting was lent to a European institution. And of course, it's good that Dresden has two works itself. The Procuress, an early work, is of course part of the list of 10 paintings. What I believe went well for the curators is that they lay out the context using 50 works of the Dutch genre painting of the second half of the 17th century, and you can see it with your own eyes. You can behold to what extent Vermeer, on the one hand, belonged to his era, but at the same time, it's such a quality leap, and that is a secret in and of itself. How could this happen? How could he increase his quality so much? And of course, I don't want to evoke the cult of a genius, but of course, it's a condensation and an overlap of many factors. Delft used to be a center of natural sciences, with a special focus on optics, for example, and many aspects come together that made this happen, but this is precisely what you can study in this exhibition as well. The Dresden tradition, of course, also is a strong tradition of restoration on the one hand. We have experts on oil paintings on wood and wood panels, for example. Here we are leading worldwide. But on the other hand, what Dresden stands for is a very careful way of handling its paintings. The Dresden Guild, for example, said that the varnish in many cases, or until today, is still present in the old master's gallery. And of course, this makes the work so valuable because you can see them in their original state. So if we do restore, we do so carefully and in international cooperation involving a lot of expertise, and then we present this in a transparent way to the public. The restoration itself is presented as a process, and I believe now more than ever is interesting for the younger generations too, because it's a combination of humanities and natural sciences in a synthesis that helps us to gain new insights. And with that, I would like to hand over to Stefan Koya. Thank you very much. I think I will take it from there with the restorations. Here at the Old Masters Gallery, it is our task, as we see it, to conserve our collection and to tap the treasures we have by restoring them. And as Ms. Ackerman has said, it's a large and ambitious agenda of restorations that we then present in exhibitions. The Veronese exhibition, for example, I'm sure you all saw that, or on the Procuress of Johannes Vermeer, that marked the starting point of this series. And this is the moment where the desire emerged to restore the girl reading a letter at an open window. Until 2003, the Procuress was restored, and I'm sure you have all seen the fantastic result. Some of the overpaint had been removed, and since then, we secretly had the desire to start restoring the girl reading a letter at some point. And when we started the restoration, we intended to remove the varnish, to clean the painting, and to examine the backside. So it was not our intention to remove any kind of overpaint, but in the course of our work, it transpired that cleaning the painting made the colors appear in a fresher way, but behind the girl's head there was a dark spot that reacted to the solvents in a completely different way. And this dark area was something we needed to interpret. Before, of course, we had used all the modern technologies such as X-ray fluorescence scanning or UV scannings, infrared technologies. But in that case, that did not bring us to any additional results. We had known since 1979 from an X-ray in San Francisco that a painting was hidden behind the girl's head on the wall, but we took it that it was Vermeer who had made the changes, because Vermeer is known as a perfectionist who really fought and battled for every single one of his compositions, and especially when it comes to the girl reading a letter, there are many places where you see that he picked up a thought and then undid it and tried to find a different way. In order to understand this area, we took small, very small material samples, and the material samples were then studied in a sectional way, and it's a bit like stratification research. It's a bit like examining the different layers, like the layer of a cake, and to understand the painting structure. And we had a ground, we had a base coat, we had a varnish with a clear layer of dirt that told us that the painting had been presented in that state for decades, and on top of that there was a different binding agent and a different layer of paint and another varnish on top of that. And we then realized, after taking a sample, I will come back to that in a minute, that the original paint layer already had developed craquelure. And thirdly, the overpaint was mixed with a bit of dirt, something that a painter like Vermeer never would have done. And that, of course, made it clear to us that the overpaint had not been done by Vermeer himself, but had been applied at a later stage. And as Mrs. Ackerman has already said, this painting is one of the major paintings of the European history of art and one of the main pieces of our collection, which is why we had involved a committee of experts from the very beginning on. That is 2017, they came to Dresden. We met in front of the picture several times, and later, of course, online due to COVID. Ursula Haller, Christoph Herm, Edgar Oberthaler, Iris Faslipe, Jürgen Wadum, Asa Wheelock, and Marlies Giebe from the Dresden State Art Collection, Christoph Stölzel and myself were part of this group of experts, and we analyzed all the findings together and then arrived at the conclusion that the picture actually will gain from our attempting to make Vermeer's original idea visible. And in order to understand the state of conservation of the picture within the picture behind the girl reading a letter, we decided to remove a strip of a width of 1 centimeter. And here we also made the decision not to use solvents, but to use a scalpel instead. A scalpel that is used in surgery as well. And we were thrilled when we realized that the painting underneath was of great quality. You could even see the individual brush strokes, and it was clear that that had been a finished part of the painting executed by Johannes Vermeer. And then we decided to remove the overpaint entirely, and the painting has gained immensely. On the one hand, it has been given back its balanced composition, the chromatographic wealth once again has been restored. There is the curtain, the carpet, the fruit, the cheeks of the girl, and the little Cupid. All those colors speak to each other, and it has become clear how well this restored painting fits into the general oeuvre of Vermeer, because with the Cupid picture on the wall, a comment becomes visible, a comment that Vermeer tries to lend to all his paintings. In almost all of his genre paintings, there is a painting in the background or a map or something that points out to a basic question, an existential human question. And in our case, the Cupid, well, it's a painting that must have belonged to the mother-in-law of Vermeer, and it occurs in 4 paintings by Vermeer. 3 of them are present, fortunately, in this exhibition. Caspar van Everdingen says that is sad to have painted it. So far, the painting itself has never emerged, but it makes a reference to a book of emblems of Otto van Leem, the teacher and master of Rubens, and it's an emblem, and this one says in concussa fide, that is, love needs loyalty, and this is why Cupid steps on the masks of deception and steps on disloyalty and mistrust, because true love does not know disloyalty. And when the sensational result of the restoration emerged, I proposed that we present not only the technical process to the public, but that we organize an exhibition with all the art history arguments behind it, which is why all the landed paintings you can see in the exhibition focus highly on the girl reading a letter at an open window. And we embed this painting into the oeuvre of Vermeer and the other painters of his time. Visitors are guided through the exhibition. They learn one aspect after the other, and then with all this knowledge, you can enjoy Girl Reading a Letter all the more. And Uta Neidhart will now say more about the exhibition. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to link up to that. Once again, I have to say a few words because it's close to my heart. I will say a few words about the picture itself, and then I will say a few words about the exhibition. Superlatives such as the nicest painting by Monet or the most expensive painting of the State Art Collection, well, this does not belong to serious art science, but nevertheless, it's about superlatives today when talking about Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window by Johannes Vermeer and its reconversion and the exhibition we open today. As a result of a unique restoration, as you have heard, by Christoph Schölzel in our studio, completed at the beginning of this year, has led to a changed appearance of this early key work by Vermeer. Only 35 paintings are known, and such an unexpected change of one of the major works of the master is well suited to create shockwaves, not only among experts, but also the interested public. For years, every single one of the appreciated works by Vermeer is followed closely. When it comes to restoration or exhibitions, there are persons who actually collect personal encounters with a Vermeer painting wherever it is on the globe, and they collect it like an old-timer, or people who set their wedding date according to when they get to see a Vermeer painting. It can be a very emotional affair. And now see what happens. A painting that actually was supposed to be cleaned of old varnish and restored a little bit, now turns out to be different than what we had taken for Vermeer's composition. And now the colors are wonderful, as you will see, and the painting has changed so much because the girl stood in front of a cold gray wall and her profile was a bit like an icon. This woman seems to be at ease and concentrated, and the concentration of the beholder was focused on her and her alone. For decades or even centuries, people have looked at the painting in such a way and loved it as such. And today, the girl reading a letter stands in her room that is adorned with some valuable objects and a large painting on the wall of the room. So the room is filled, and her beautiful head and face is now appearing before the backdrop of a black frame, and the naked god of love looks at the beholder directly. His size is surprising. It is more or less the same than the size of the woman behind the table, and the dark rectangular shape of the painting in this corner of Vermeer's painting has changed the entire composition. That means that finally it has arrived again at the state that Vermeer deemed valid after a long compositional process. The Cupid seems to hover above the girl and takes up a lot of space in the picture, and he makes it clear that the girl is reading a love letter. The naked Cupid in the painting rests on his bow that he uses to shoot his arrows, and with his foot he steps on a mask. The two masks, finding them is the most spectacular discovery when we removed the overpaint, because no X-ray method so far had hinted at the existence of the two masks. While Mr. Schultze removed the lower part of the painting, the masks emerged for the very first time. The sophisticated citizens and collectors in the Netherlands were able to read paintings like that because they were trained in reading the rhetoric of a painting of their time. Of course, they were familiar with the Naked Cupid, and they knew it from the emblematic literature. One of those emblematic books was published 1608 in Antwerp, and it showed the little naked Cupid stepping on a mask on the ground. And you have already mentioned this briefly. The beholder of this picture, due to the emblematic elements, was able to read the picture in concassa fides. The picture said, "The true love needs loyalty, and Amor steps on the mask of deception with his foot." Vermeer in his genre paintings often fell back on this rhetoric means of a painting or a map on the wall, and usually it holds a statement that naturally is combined with what you can see in the foreground of the picture. In Vermeer's oeuvre, you can find a number of examples of this kind, of course in other genre paintings of masters of his time as well. And in our exhibition, you will see a great number of examples like that. The painting with the Cupid appears 4 times in Vermeer's work, and we have 3 examples in our collection. So you can see how Vermeer has used the Caesar von Everdingen painting that probably was the true painting that existed and that he used. Sometimes he changed the illuminations, then there is a painting where you can only see a small piece of it, then there's a Cupid as a grisette, and twice you find this radiating, laughing, smiling Cupid as a painting on the wall in the background of another painting. Our exhibition is devised in such a way that we bring together Vermeer with other painters, like the Everdingen painting for his Cupid, and the interaction and mutual influence between the artists and to make it visible. Vermeer did not work somewhere in a closed-off area, but in Delft, in the midst of the Netherlands, in a flourishing art landscape. And there were valuable paintings of these years in the second half of the 17th century, where genre scenes like that, Frans van Mieris, Radau, Peter de Hoog, Gabriel Metzu, and Johannes Vermeer, they were the ones best known for them. And if the visitors follow the tour through the exhibition, you will be guided through different topic rooms, always with a link to Vermeer's Girl Reading a Letter. Visual knowledge is collected, and it's a visual knowledge that the beholder of the restored painting will need to possible to fully read Vermeer's Girl Reading a Letter. And I would like to encourage you to go on the journey of our exhibition. You will see a mirror of the Dutch society at the times of Vermeer. You will find some of the most valuable Dutch genre paintings and 10 paintings by Johannes Vermeer. At the center, you will find the girl reading a letter at an open window, shining like a new painting. There is something, by the way, that I would like to add, because I failed to mention that. Since 2017, we have, of course, followed the restoration, and you will see a little movie that shows the essential steps of the restoration. And secondly, briefly before the exhibition started, there is a high-resolution 3D microscope scan together with Hyrox. The result is 35 million pixel. That is, the resolution is a lot higher than the Night Watch of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And you can see that on a video screen in the exhibition too, and we will make it accessible for the public in the future. And supported and sponsored the exhibition, and the State Art Collection is sponsored by the Sparkasse as well. And now we have time for question. If you have questions, please wait for a microphone to be brought to you. I'm not sure. But yes, there is a microphone. Please wait for the microphone. Sabine Dahlhausen of Kyoto News in Berlin. I have one, or actually even two questions. I'm not sure if they are for Ms. Neithardt or Mr. Koja. So, what does it mean, the finished restoration of Vermeer? What's the meaning for the State Art Collection? And secondly, could you say a few words about the painting as it is now and what that... Well, the position or value of the painting in our State Art Collection has always been extraordinary, before the restoration too. And everybody who visited the collection wanted to see the or the two Vermeers. And maybe some are surprised by the new appearance of the painting, and this is due to the fact that it has always been one of the most important paintings for the general audience. And then there are Vermeer fans from all over the world, and they sometimes write us and say, "Are you showing these two paintings? Because if not, we won't come." So the position and the value has always been outstanding, and now I think all the more, and I think after the restoration we will see a whole new flow of visitors, especially when the painting goes back to the general collection at the end of next year. When it comes to the position of the painting within the oeuvre, well, this has been a decisive question for Vermeer research. As the painting now has a different appearance, it has become a lot more similar to the rest of the paintings by Vermeer. It fits better into his oeuvre. And in The Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window in Dresden, a visual rhetoric was used that you can find in other paintings as well. So now it is more logical and seems to fit better and more understandably into the general oeuvre. And it plays an important role for the early works. In this painting, many changes were made by Vermeer himself, independent of this overpaint from an external source. We examined it, studied it, published it. It's actually an experiment, this painting. In this early painting, Vermeer tried out many things. He tried using repertoire motifs in the foreground and then undid them. Then there was a rumor glass in the foreground on the right-hand side that they then painted over with the green curtain. And you can see how he struggled step by step until he arrived at his solution. It is wonderful to see that, because now finally we see in front of us what he intended. I could actually add a little bit for us. Of course, it is a key painting because Vermeer uses many figures of a mythological nature, for example, or the genre painting of the procuress. And here, for the first time, Vermeer tried a basic composition that he will then stick to, and that is a female figure often standing in a room in front of a window illuminated from the left-hand side. So in that respect, this painting marks the passage towards the mature Vermeer, where he produced the paintings that we deem typical of him. Okay, there is another question. Aber was stand zur Frage, als Sie sich entschieden haben, den übermalten Teil zu entfernen? Was war das größte Dilemma? I will answer in German, if I may. Well, of course it was a challenge. But we actually only had two opportunities. One would have been to once again overpaint this kind of dirty surface and match it with the cleaned areas around it, but that was out of the question. As I have already mentioned before, of course, we were really, really excited and anxious to see what kind of quality the underlying paintwork would have, which is why we started with this sample strip of 1 centimeter in order to assure ourselves of the quality of what was underneath. And the result was so clear and so obvious that we decided to continue with the removal. Thank you. There is another question right next to the lady. Originally, you had announced to present the painting in June. Now, for reasons we all know, the presentation has been delayed. I think the global interest is so high that many people will actually go on a pilgrimage to Dresden. So, how do you intend to involve the interested local public? Despite all the measures, how do you want to make it accessible? We made the decision to have the exhibition now. We did not want to postpone it to another year where more international travel would have been possible. That would have cost us many of the paintings we are showing here. It's a fragile balance. There is a momentum behind it, and now it was possible. Of course, it's an exhibition that we hope will be seen by many, many people outside of Dresden and Saxony too. And hopefully the situation will improve within Dresden and Saxony. I believe it's not a problem at all because all the measures are in place. We have ticket slots and we have a lot of experience with that now, so we do not really see a problem in that regard. And if we see that the demand is so high that we cannot really answer it with one full day, we probably could make the visiting hours a little bit longer. Okay, thank you. There is a question on the other side. You already have a microphone. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you. Okay, please try again. Now we can hear you. Thank you. Uwe Friedrich, ARD Radio. Two questions. I took a look at the intermediate state on a general visitors day, and there were many interesting discussions in front of the picture. What is your experience with the exhibition visitors? How was it received and discussed? Did you become aware of that? And the second question regarding the paintings you have from other museums, is there anything you wanted? The green curtain makes you think of the Dublin Vermeer, which of course would have been wonderful to see that in one room with your Vermeer paintings. Well, maybe we could start with the second question. Of course, we all have many wishes. We lost one of the paintings, Diana and her companions, due to our having to postpone the exhibition. Paintings that are that we borrow from other museums have to rest a while, so you cannot continue lending them. When it comes to the Dublin painting, of course, we attempted to get hold of it. The National Gallery of Ireland brought us two wonderful matches, a gentleman writing a letter, a woman receiving it, so they were very generous. But the problem they had is that the painting had been shown in a Paris and Dublin exhibition and in Washington. So they had sent it there, and the restoration studio there was against it. But nevertheless, we are very grateful for what we have and can show now, and that it allowed us to put up the argument that you will see in the exhibition. As for the discussion, of course, the reception of the painting is iconic, and the same is true for us. If it's a painting that you love and have come to love, that is like an ideal, an icon, is something you have to let go. It was a bit like a phantom pain. It is a bit of a loss as well. It happened to me as well, but on the other hand, the quality that emerged is so convincing, and the colors, the distribution of shades, the illumination in the picture, and all of a sudden you realize that something was not right before, and it only becomes clearer now. So from that point of view, we think it was the correct decision, and well, people discussing it, that's good. And the old version of the painting will have historic anchors because it has been received for such a long time, and now it's part of the history of the painting. But the history of art is a history of conversions and telling stories again in a different way. Okay, I think there is a lady in the back with a question. Okay, hi. I have two quick questions. One is, when did the last Vermeer exhibition in Germany take place, where more than two paintings were shown? And the second question links up to the question of the gentleman. Due to having postponed the exhibition, have you lost only one painting, the one that Mr. Koya mentioned, or were there more? Well, it seems strange, but the last Vermeer exhibition was in Dresden as well, for the German area. In 2010, we had an exhibition with early Vermeers, the three early works from Edinburgh, The Hague, and our procuress. And back then, we already examined the girl reading a letter in an open window in its former state. Then there was an exhibition at the Stadel Museum in Frankfurt with the geographer and the astronomer were shown together, those wonderful interiors with young men. But I think when it comes to the German area, that's it. Okay, thank you. Another question. On the other side of the room, I think behind the sculpture, Andreas Skill, Frankfurter Allgemeine, painting over Vermeer is an interesting historic fact. And in the catalogue, there were a few ideas why it was overpainted in Paris and by whom. A few hints, and King and his wife Maria Josefa acquired the painting. Well, will you follow this part of the history in your exhibition as well, or is it history and gone and done? Well, we want to examine 3 of the paintings that arrived with this one at Dresden because there were hints that some of them were overpainted. As you all know, the girl reading a letter was an additional painting that was simply thrown in with this order, and we know that some paintings were overpainted in order to give them a different meaning. That happened frequently, and some paintings were painted over by Vermeer. There were a few in the exhibition, Diana and her companions, that unfortunately we lost for this exhibition. A forest was turned into a blue summer sky, and the lady with a balance from Washington. There is a frame in the background that used to be golden, and then it was painted over because it seemed to be screaming out too much. And the Frick Collection painting is a painting where the Cupid was also painted over, and in 1907 the overpaint was removed. And of course there are many examples for other painters as well. And by the way, your question regarding postponing the exhibition due to COVID, well, we toed and froed. We lost a painting by Peter de Burgh that we would have loved to show, but we were able to compensate it with other paintings that came from other institutions, so there are no gaps, really. Okay, if there are no further questions, but there are further questions. One here in the front, please. Alexander Hahn, Independent Media. Ich habe eine Frage. Jedes Mal, wenn wir ein neues Gemälde sehen, dann ändert sich auch eine Konvention, also ein fundamentaler Wandel in unserer Wahrnehmung, unserer Rezeption des Bildes. Und dasselbe kann ja mit Vermeer auch passieren. Ein neues Bild, eine neue Erkenntnis, eine neue Wahrnehmung, eine neue Sichtweise. Hat sich Ihre Sichtweise auf Vermeer geändert? Erste Frage. Und zweite Frage: Das ist ja wirklich ganz interessant, wie das alles zustande kam. Neue Entdeckungen. Gibt es noch neue Entdeckungen, die Sie hier in Dresden in der Pipeline haben? Gibt es irgendwas, was wir für die nächsten 10 Jahre erwarten können? Dankeschön. Well, surprises, of course, we won't talk about that, but I'm sure there will be surprises. I would like to recall the Bernini, the skull, that actually was a fantastic rediscovery. I believe that Vermeer's painting, due to the removal of the overpaint, has gained and enriches the oeuvre, and incessantly new things are discovered. For example, many other paintings were examined with technical means and new insights were gained. And when it comes to the intellectual background of the paintings, I think we're about to open new dimensions. For example, the light metaphor in Vermeer's painting is not a photorealistic rendering of optical phenomena, but it also has a religious background, a religious component. And Gregor Weber, one of the authors of this catalog, is currently examining the sources and influences. A work of such a grand painter is like a continent where you continue to discover things. I would like to add that, of course, the technical means of examining paintings are improving. And if you do research on Vermeer or Jan van Eyck, you could hold a conference every 10 years, and within 10 years, thanks to the technical possibilities, you can gain new insights, and this is true for Vermeer paintings as well. In 2010, there were some of the methods not available that we have now and that really helped us when it came to the girl reading a letter in an open window. Okay, thank you very much. There was a question regarding the catalog. Yes, there is one. It was published by Sandstein. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Unfortunately, our schedule is a bit tight. If you have further questions, of course, you're welcome to ask them on the tour. We will now continue to the Winkelmann Forum. I would like to direct your attention to these photos inspired by Vermeer. Maybe you can take a look at it as you pass by. And apart from that, I would like to thank you and now enjoy the guided tour through the exhibition with not only 10 paintings by Vermeer, but many paintings by Dutch genre painters. Thank you very much.